For 5 months, I shaped a clueless intern into a competent professional, my boss's nephew, handed to me as a favor. I taught him everything, from technical execution to client rapport. But when promotion time came, he got my spot. Not because he earned it, but because of bloodlines and boardroom whispers. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't protest. Instead, I took something far more valuable than a title. I took his clients. One by one, methodically and quietly, until the company had no choice but to see who really held the power. This is not a story of revenge. It's a demonstration of what happens when competence meets quiet calculation. The first time I met Nathan, he was wearing a watch he didn't know how to read, and shoes that had never touched dirt. His handshake was soft. His eyes bounced from one corner of my office to the other, like a kid forced into a grown-up suit. And yet, my boss introduced him with pride. My sister's boy, fresh out of business school. He'll be shadowing you. I said nothing, just nodded. That was my specialty, nodding, observing, calculating. I had been with the firm for 9 years. Not long enough to have a name on the door, but long enough to be trusted with the names that mattered. Blackwell, Ridgefield, Trevors, clients I'd built from cold calls and desperation. The kind of clients who remembered my birthday and asked about my mother. Nathan didn't know that. He didn't know anything. In the beginning, he mistook me for his assistant. I corrected him, politely, with a tone so mild it made him feel stupid without knowing why. I trained him, of course I did, because I was told to, and because playing the long game sometimes means playing dumb. I taught him how to pitch without sounding desperate, how to listen, not just talk, how to underpromise and over. He followed me everywhere, meetings, lunches, late-night strategy calls. I gave him real work, not the junk interns get, the real thing, and he learned, not quickly, but thoroughly. He was a sponge, absorbing everything I gave. What I didn't realize was that someone else was watching just as closely. 3 weeks before the promotion was announced, my boss called me into his office. He leaned back in his leather chair and smiled, that practiced politician's smile. "You've done wonders with Nathan," he said. "Truly, he's really blossomed under your wing." I kept my expression neutral. The silence between us stretched, weighted with implications. He added, "He reminds me of a younger you." That should have been a compliment. But it wasn't, not from a man like him. I didn't see it then. Not fully. I thought I had a shot. I thought merit still had currency in this place. The day of the announcement, the entire team gathered in the conference room. The air was thick with anticipation. I didn't expect applause, but I expected recognition. Instead, the room broke into polite claps as Nathan was introduced as the firm's new client development lead. My role, the one I had been told was mine in everything but title. That title now belonged to someone who had never brought in a single account. Nathan shook my hand on his way to the podium. He whispered, "Couldn't have done it without you." He meant it. That's what stung most. I didn't flinch. I congratulated him with the same steady voice I'd used to teach him how to navigate egos and invoices. Then I stepped back into the shadows, where the real work begins. They thought I'd stay quiet. They were right, but they mistook quiet for defeat. The days after Nathan's promotion passed slowly, like time dragging its feet through mud. In meetings, he began to use phrases I'd taught him, as if he'd coined them himself. He quoted my strategies to clients, packaging them with a glossy smile and confident pauses. And each time he spoke, I saw the cracks in his foundation. He didn't understand, nuances he missed, relationships he assumed were inherited instead of earned. But I stayed silent. That's what they expected. The older guard at the firm believed silence meant submission. They didn't realize silence was just strategy deferred, that it was during one of our client transition meetings that I first saw the leverage forming. Nathan had scheduled a call with Trevors and Clark, one of our legacy accounts. I joined the meeting. As a courtesy, I told him. He nodded, trying not to look annoyed. But midway through the conversation, it became clear. The client was uncomfortable. They asked questions Nathan didn't understand. He deflected with buzzwords and vague affirmations. When the call ended, Trevors himself sent me a private message. "He's not you. Let's talk soon." That message wasn't just a compliment. It was an invitation, so I began to listen more carefully. To the way the partners spoke about Nathan behind closed doors, to the way support staff rolled their eyes when he wasn't looking. He was wearing the title, but he didn't carry the weight. He lacked the gravity. Then came the internal review documents. I wasn't supposed to see them, but I had access. A relic of my old role that Nathan hadn't realized still lingered in the system permissions. I read through performance evaluations, client satisfaction reports, call transcripts. Nathan's numbers looked good on paper, because they were still riding on my groundwork. The client still operated on the assumption that I was involved. My name still appeared in their notes, their referrals, their trust. And then I found a tan email chain between my boss and the executive board, dated 2 weeks before the promotion. Subject: succession planning. Nathan A. My name was never mentioned, not once. No comparison, no evaluation. Just the assumption that I would continue providing informal mentorship and operational continuity. A fancy way of saying they expected me to keep doing the work, without the title. While Nathan smiled for the photos, I printed the email, not for confrontation, for clarity. Because at that moment, I stopped wondering why it happened. Nepotism was not the surprise. The surprise was that they believed I would accept it, that I would be a good soldier, that I would keep my head down, and watch the parade pass. I didn't confront Nathan. I congratulated him again. I offered to help with a few of his larger accounts. He beamed out because when someone sees you as harmless, they stop guarding what matters. What Nathan didn't know was that I had already begun reaching out quietly to the very clients he now thought were his. Not to poach, not yet, just to ask how they were doing, how they felt the transition was going, whether they needed anything else, and one by one, they responded with the same tone. We miss the way you handled things. It's been different. Are you still involved? He's not quite you. No anger, just uncertainty. And uncertainty, in business, is a slow poison. So I kept watching, kept tracking every small misstep, every missed follow-up, every slip of arrogance. They gave Nathan my title, but they'd made a mistake. They forgot to take away my influence. There's a point in every long game where you stop reacting and start orchestrating. Mine began 3 weeks after Nathan's promotion, on a Thursday, just after lunch. That was the day I created a folder titled Contingency. Inside it, I placed a simple spreadsheet columns labeled Client, Contact, Loyalty Level, Risk, and Opportunity. It was cold, clinical, necessary. I didn't want revenge. I wanted redistribution. The clients that Nathan now owned weren't his. They were relationships I'd built with years of face-to-face time, late-night calls, delicate negotiations, and intuitive trust. They didn't need Nathan. They needed results. And when results faltered, their loyalty would drift to wherever stability still lived. I started small. I reached out to clients under the guise of support. I offered myself as a safety net, a second opinion. Let me help Nathan get up to speed, I'd say. They agreed, relieved. And in doing so, they leaned back into email by email, call by call. At the same time, I began working late again, not in the office, at home, quietly, building parallel systems, drafting proposals, mapping out potential partnerships. I created a shadow framework, a consultancy that didn't exist yet, but could, one that would absorb every major account that once sat in Nathan's portfolio. But I wasn't reckless. I didn't want a dramatic exit. I wanted control. So I started offering solutions to a few key clients outside of our firm's platform. Just tests. Nothing that violated contracts, just insights, referrals, efficiency models. I framed it as above and beyond. And they responded. One by one, they reached out less to Nathan, more to me. Then came the real shift. Ridgefield Capital, our second largest client, scheduled a quarterly review. Nathan was supposed to lead, but he'd forgotten to confirm the time zone difference. The CEO showed up to an empty call. No presentation, no prep, no apology. 2 hours later, I called him myself. Apologies for the mix-up. I said, if you still have time, I'd like to walk you through the Q2 numbers. He agreed. I prepared the deck in an hour, delivered it in 20 minutes. He ended the call with 5 words. You should be running things. I didn't respond. Just thanked him for the trust. It wasn't the first comment like that, and it wouldn't be the last. Inside the firm, Nathan was beginning to feel the tremors. He called me into his office one morning. His tone was cheerful, but his eyes darted. Have you been reaching out to my clients? I looked at him for a long second. They reached out to me, I said, which was true. He smiled tightly. Just keep me in the loop. Of course, but I didn't, because I wasn't looping him into anything anymore. I wasn't sabotaging him. I was simply proving something the firm had forgotten. Titles don't hold clients. Trust does. And trust, once fractured, doesn't return to its original shape. By the end of the month, 3 of Nathan's marquee accounts had shifted most of their communication to me. Quietly, unofficially, but completely. In that contingency folder, it wasn't theory anymore, it was a roadmap. The first official defection came on a Monday morning. An email, short, precise. Ridgefield Capital had decided to pursue a new consulting relationship independent of current partnerships. The firm buzzed with confusion. Nathan called an emergency meeting. He looked pale, cornered. He blamed himself, then quickly pivoted to blaming unclear transition processes. Staff turnover. The market. No one looked at me, but everyone knew. The next to go was Blackwell Holdings. A discreet call they wanted out of their contract, citing recent declines in service alignment. That was their way of saying, we trusted one person, and he's no longer the one with the badge. Then it snowballed. Trevors and Clark Landbridge. Even the smaller clients began pulling back. Not completely, but enough to raise eyebrows. Enough to trigger late-night calls in the partner suite. Enough to make my boss stare at spreadsheets and wonder why the numbers looked solid 3 months ago and now bled red margins. That's when I received the calendar invite. Lunch, you and me. The subject line read, It was from him, the boss, the man who handed Nathan my chair like it was a party favor. We met at the restaurant he always used for recruitment. Dim lighting, leather booths. The kind of place where power feels quiet, like a hum you're supposed to recognize. He didn't waste time. "I know you're behind this," he said, sipping his scotch. I met his eyes. "Behind what?" He set the glass down, harder than necessary. "The client shifts, the breakdown. I know how these relationships were built." I nodded slowly. "Then you know I never lost them. You just stopped acknowledging that they were mine." He leaned back, watching me, calculating. "What do you want?" I smiled faintly. "It's not about what I want. It's about what I've already built." That's when I showed him the document. A non-compete review. His signature, dated 3 years ago. It had a loophole, a small clause stating that any client relationship initiated prior to 18 months of formal employment was considered non-proprietary, meaning, if I left, they could follow, legally, ethically, permanently. He read the clause twice. "You've been planning this." "No," I said, "I've been prepared for it." He tried bargaining. Title, reinstatement, equity, a new team. But I wasn't interested because while he and Nathan had been playing house with hierarchy, I had built something leaner, quieter, smarter. I didn't need the firm anymore, and neither did the clients. 2 days later, I resigned. Not with drama. Just a simple, professional email. The fallout came fast. Faster than I expected. Clients didn't just drift, they stampeded. They sent notices, called receptionists, removed the firm's logos from their slides. And Nathan, he couldn't hold any of them. He called twice after I left. Once to ask if I'd reconsider. Once to ask if I'd speak to Ridgefield on his behalf. I didn't answer either call. The firm survived. Of course it did. But it limped. And Nathan, he kept the title. But without clients, a title is just ink on paper. What I had was weight, trust, leverage. Justice wasn't served with spectacle. It was served in silence. I work from a smaller office now. No glass walls, no skyline view. Just a desk, a door that locks, and a client list more loyal than any title could buy. The firm I built runs lean, without the noise of middlemen or nephews. No plaques on the wall, no stock photos of smiling teams. Just results. People ask me if I miss it, the prestige, the marble floors, the corporate Christmas parties with their lukewarm wine and forced applause. I don't, because what they never understood is this. Power isn't found in position. It's found in being the person others trust when the room burns down. And trust isn't given with a promotion. It's built, quietly, in the spaces between emails and handshakes. In the years no one sees, Nathan still has the title. I checked once. His name is now printed on the firm's leadership page, next to a quote about innovation and teamwork. But the accounts, they tell another story, the kind that doesn't make it into press releases. Occasionally, I hear whispers. A former colleague sends a message, a passive apology disguised as small talk. "Things aren't the same," they say. "You should have been the one." Maybe, but that's not the point anymore. This wasn't revenge. I didn't burn anything down. I just left the room and took the air with me. And if there's one lesson in all this, it's simple. Don't mistake someone's silence for weakness. Sometimes, silence is the sound of a man building something better. They gave Nathan my seat at the table. I built my own table. And when I did, the people who mattered got up and followed.